All right. Hey, folks. Today we're going to be talking about measuring body fat. So before that, thanks for making it onto my channel. If you have any comments or questions about today, please pop them down below. And if you'd like to work with me on your own physique and strength goals, there is a link in the description. So measuring body fat. Now, this is a question that I get sort of intermittently, as in, coach, what's my body fat percentage? Or what was your body fat percentage on scale? Things like that, things of that nature. And I always hesitate to answer this question because it is very, very subjective and it's highly variable based on the measurement that you use. So firstly, first kind of thing I wanted to talk about is, as a kind of like a TLDR, it doesn't matter like what your body fat percentage is. It really doesn't. Like, no one's going to give you a bodybuilding trophy because you're 5% body fat or 8% body fat or whatever. Funnily enough, that has been talked about in recent times, like that you should go to a bodybuilding show and your body fat should be tested, and that should be a contributing factor for how you score. I've heard that as a potential thing that they might introduce in bodybuilding shows in some newer federations as something to make them different and stand out from what regular federations do. I don't think it'll catch on because I think, for the reasons that I'm about to state in this video, the way that you measure body fat is highly variable and it can be very inaccurate. So the first thing is, what's your body fat percentage? It doesn't matter, okay? When I got on stage, no one asked me what my body fat percentage was. I didn't care. And if I was to step on a measurement scale in the morning of the competition, it might have led me to freak out, actually, thinking to myself, well, maybe I'm not ready or whatever. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect how you do on stage. It doesn't affect what you look like on the beach with your top off. It doesn't affect what you look like to other people. It's just for yourself. So why do people want to know? Because people like to be numbers driven. They like to be data driven. And so do I, to a certain extent. I mean, I do as well. I'm very data driven. And it's one of the things which makes you a good coach, because you can be objective when your clients are very subjective, because that's what dieting and strength training and competition does to you. It makes you highly subjective. It makes your opinion on yourself highly subjective, so it can be prone to ups and downs of the day. So being objective and having objective measures of improvement are useful. So I get it. Like, I get why people want to know their body fat percentage. The problem is that you're only as good as how accurate the data is. That's the big problem. So if you step on the scale in the morning and the scale is in the same position, and you step on the scale in the morning after you've had a wee and before you've had anything, that is pretty consistent. And most people will see a relatively reasonable body weight in the morning, roughly congruent with what they think they're going to be weighing. Now, for those people who kind of freak out about that, like, oh, I'm a pound up, they normally don't understand about water balance and food in the gut and stuff like that. So once you explain that to them, they tend to feel better about that. This is not that. Like, measuring your body fat is not prone to those weird ups and downs. Measuring your body fat is just one of those things which is not massively accurate anyway, depending on different measures that you use. So being data driven is good. However, you're only as good as the data you actually have. So if we take one of the most popular ways that people measure their body fat is via the scales, the BIA scales. Okay, you can have. I had a conversation with a client just this morning who, one of the scales had her at 24% body fat, another scale had her at 18% body fat. So 6% variance. If you step on a scale, drink like 2 liters of water, and then wait 10 minutes, guaranteed your body fat will measure as different. So they are highly subjective. So the BIAs are very, very subjective. So they're not something to be trusted as a regular measurement. They can give you a broad viewpoint of how your body fat changes over time, I guess, but you're looking at months and months. So yeah, the first point is, I understand why people look to body fat, because it's just like any other measurement, like body weight, or measuring the stomach, measurements around the body. I get it. So it makes sense. However, the problem is, in any measure that you use to track your progress, it's got to be at least a reasonable degree of accuracy. You've got to have a reasonable degree of accuracy. The problem with body fat measurements is they tend not to. We're just very behind on the technology, which allows us to measure those quickly and easily. So another way that people use track body fat measurements is calipers. Again, calipers are all right. They can be very prone to measurement inaccuracy. You have to have a good deal of practice to be able to do this right. Even a couple of inches, a couple of millimeters out of one way or another can give you a different body fat percentage day to day. So they can be very prone to error as well. So even in things like a DEXA scan, DEXAs aren't, without sort of errors either. So for those of you who have access to a DEXA scan, they're not the be all and end all themselves. So you see this in a high degree of inaccuracy. Like, for example, if you look at, I think it was Ronnie Coleman recently, who said, someone asked him what his body fat percentage was in his competition days, and I think he said he was like -2 or something like that, something ridiculous like that, which obviously is completely untrue. In his mind, I'm sure he was like 0% body fat. He had no body fat on him. Same with Dorian and a few others. But the reality is, if you were 0%, you'd be dead. So did it stop either of them from winning a ton of Olympias? No. Did it stop either of them from being ready on stage? No, it didn't. So my point is this, just to sort of round out the first bit of what I'm trying to say is, one, I understand why people want to know their body fat percentage, because it's a form of objective data. Secondly, it's not the most accurate or reliable one, so I tend not to use it myself. Now, what we do want to do though, so let's provide some solutions. What we do want to do is measure what is actually relatively accurate. So for that, what I normally rely on is body weight in the morning and trying to find an average across the week. That is really important. At least 3 measurements across the week, and at most, and what I prefer is measuring your body weight every day. That's generally what I prefer, and then finding an average. That gives you a reasonable amount, and then just compare your weekly average to your next weekly average. The day-to-day stuff, just ignore about it. We're not trying to compare the day-to-day. We're just using the day-to-day to fuel the weekly average, and the weekly average is actually what we compare. Okay, so that's the first thing. Compare your weekly average body weight from week to week. Okay. The next thing is measurements. Measurements once per week are quite good because they give us a broad picture across the range of months and months. Your body measurements are not going to change massively from week to week. Okay. And if they do, it's probably user error. But giving you a picture across the month is far more important, because across a series of, like, say, 3 to 6 months, your waist measurement may well go down by inches. So it is a reasonable indicator. These are all just reasonable indicators. The biggest thing is pictures. Take pictures in similar lighting under similar conditions, and that's probably the biggest thing when it comes to physique improvements, because you can see a difference week to week. And so I do rely very much on pictures week to week. They're very important because that's basically what we're trying to improve, right? We're trying to improve the end product. All of these other things that we measure, like body weight, body fat measurements, they're all proxies for what we're trying to measure. What we're trying to measure is how sexy we look and feel, right? That's it. Let's boil down to the basics. So I'm all about these proxy measures, but understand that that's what they are. They are proxy measures for the end goal, which is how do you look naked, right? That's it. Let's strip it down. That's what we're trying to improve. Or like, what do you look like on stage on the day? What do you look like for the beach? Like, that's what we're trying to improve. So rather than getting hung up on proxies for what we're trying to improve, focus mostly on what you're trying to improve. Put your attention there, which should be pictures in similar lighting week in, week out. And for my clients, I tend to go front, side, back. That's it, nice and easy. So I don't really want to be, unless they're competition bodybuilders, I don't want them to be hitting poses in favorable lighting. They can do that if they like, as kind of like a fun thing, but ideally for comparisons, front, back, and side. That's really what we use for accurate comparisons from week to week in similar lighting. That works, okay? Because it gives us the stark reality of what we're seeing, whether there are improvements or not. Now, in terms of whether you're going to be, in terms of what body fat percentage you are, what we really need to focus on is, when are we ready? That's the thing. When are we ready? When are we ready? And when you feel ready for the beach, great. When you feel you're ready for stage, great. But you will know when you're ready, because you can compare yourself. If it's a stage thing, you can compare yourself to other people who are competing. If it's for the beach, it is what you are comfortable with. So I just wanted to end with that by saying, you've got to pay attention to these objective markers of progression, objective markers of what you're looking like. But remember, all of the things that we measure from week to week, they are only proxies for what the end product is, which is how do we look and feel about ourselves. That's the main thing. And if you're where you want to be, then great, job done. It doesn't matter what your body fat percentage says, it doesn't matter what your measurements say, it doesn't matter about the scale. It is what you look like in the mirror. That's what counts. All right, folks. Hopefully that provides a little bit more of a insight into how I feel about body fat percentage. And it's basically what I did to get on stage. And in fact, it's what most bodybuilders do. Like most bodybuilders in the last few weeks are not frantically measuring their body weight. Most bodybuilders in the last few weeks are looking at themselves in the mirror, posing, and ensuring that they are ready by getting to where they want to be. And I know a lot of you aren't competitive bodybuilders, but I use that example because it gives you an idea of what people are doing at the utmost peak of lower body fats. And so for you guys who are just getting ready for a beach, like it's good enough for you. You don't need to know your body fat percentage. It's just a case of, are you ready? If you are, great, but try not to place any excess importance on proxies. Just place the priority on what's important, which is how you look. Right, I will call it there, and I'll speak to you next time. Take it easy, folks.